Yes, I finished it! I persevered and I finished Mistborn: The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, bringing my total number of books by Sanderson read to a whopping 2 books. Yes. So here's what I thought about The Final Empire. I kind of figure this is a little bit appropriate to do on the heels of my unpopular opinions tag, because if you've been watching my recent videos or seeing any of my updates on social media, you'll probably know I wasn't incredibly enthusiastic about this book as I was reading it, and my review could very succinctly be summarized as one giant shrug of neutrality, because I thought it was okay. Really, I expected this book to be a little bit more fresh and original and unique, given all of the rave reviews by many people whose opinions I really trust. And I don't know why I'm not getting the same Brandon Sanderson feels that everyone else is. The writing was decent, it was solid, but I was really surprised at how simplistic Sanderson's writing is in this book. Just, it's simple in its vocabulary, in sentence complexity, and in the figurative language and the visual imagery. And I was expecting something more than that. This really struck me as the kind of writing I would find in a YA fantasy novel. That's no offense to YA fantasy by any means, but I thought this was an adult fantasy book, and it did not read that way to me. On the other hand, it was incredibly easy to read. I don't think I spent more than a total of 6 hours reading this book, and it's like more than 500 pages long. I was kind of astonished at how quickly I got through it, but that's because the writing is really easy to get through. The plot was honestly little more than I have already heard about or read myself multiple times in the fantasy genre. It's the pretty standard story at its heart about a young person who discovers they have, you know, a great talent that will help them overcome the evil lord and incite rebellions and save the world. And I'm being a little bit flippant there, I'm sorry, but it was nothing incredibly new, and it's not a bad type of story. It's not a bad plot. It's very common, but it's one that I expected to be elevated by a different spin on the characters or on the world building, or just maybe more complicated writing, more complex writing and presentation of the details in the story. There is a twist in the plot near the end, which I think means that the storyline will be less stereotypical in books 2 and 3, so I will give it that. The characters were the biggest letdown for me because I just didn't care about them. I always felt like they were kind of at a distance or not very well developed at all, even when they were having, you know, they had their interpersonal relationships and their conversations and they were doing things, and some of them even talk about their backstories, and even then, I just didn't feel like there was real emotion there or real feelings there. I just completely couldn't connect with a lot of these characters, and on top of that, I actively disliked Kelsier and Ellen throughout large parts of the story, and I'm kind of meh about Vin. She is a teenage girl, and so I will forgive some of the things that she does that make it seem, well, like she's a teenage girl, but I was surprised, honestly, that I didn't care more about her by the end of the book, because her character development, her growth, and her whole story arc is right there on display throughout the entire book. She definitely changes by the end, but I didn't care that much. The magic system, though, people were right about this. Sanderson has a very well thought out magic system. By the halfway point in the book, I was actually really into people throwing themselves off of walls and flying around and pushing and pulling on things. And I think it helps a lot that this particular magic system seems to have a real foundation in the physical laws of nature, which, you know me, if it's logic-based and science-based, I'm more likely to really enjoy that. So I just thought there were enough strengths and drawbacks to this magic system to make its practical usage very interesting. You can't do all things with it, and if you do it the wrong way, there are repercussions to that. I should probably mention the politics as well as a large part of the world building, which I was a little bit skeptical about. I've read a lot more fantasy books that are very much based on like political and court intrigue this year. Things like Inda or the Goblin Emperor. And so it kind of jumped out to me in this book that the politics and the way people were behaving within their agendas and the political systems felt like a childish interpretation of politics, or a dumbing down of how politics really works and the complexity of politics and how that influences people's behavior. It just didn't ring true to me a lot, especially the whole thing about Vin going to balls and parties and stuff and infiltrating the nobility that way. Maybe I'm just being too skeptical here, but it didn't always feel real. The net effect of everything I've just said is it was okay. Some parts of it I enjoyed, some parts of it I didn't, and it sort of averages out in the middle too. It was okay. Have I said the word okay enough? I'm not sure if or when I will continue with the series. I'm not saying never, because I could see myself being talked into reading the rest of the series. If you want to try talking me into reading books 2 and 3 because you feel that strongly about it, you're more than welcome to try. You will probably succeed. It's just not at the top of my priority list right now. I'm not giving up on Sanderson either. He seems to be an author I just can't quit trying. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know how you feel about this book, and if you think that I'm completely off base about any of this, or if you think that I'm right about any of this. I don't mean to rain on the parade of Sanderson fans, but, you know, we all have our opinions, and you can chuck mine out a window if you want to.